welcome back to another episode of Irons Overland. I'm your host, Sean.
And I'm Jake.
What about the radio DJ?
I'm your late night presenter, Jake. How's that? Was that better?
That's better.
I haven't figured out like the best thing to say. Like trying to get that, nice DJ voice, but like I can do the DJ voice all day. I just don't know the attractive things to say that they'll be like, oh man, he's got the voice and the vocabulary.
Research.
I think I need to practice, and then we'll just put it out to like the fans, the one fan we might have, and see what they say. They might be like, "Oh yeah, we just don't even like the DJ voice."
Yeah, I wonder how you add a poll and everything to this.
I'd rather not find that out.
Oh come on, it'd be funny. See if anybody is actually listening to us to put a poll out there. Get some feedback.
Do you actually like the radio voice?
So how's the weather down by you? We have actually some accumulated snow and getting stuck to the road now.
Okay, it's freaking freezing down here. All right, hear me out. I know it's colder up there. I totally understand that. It's definitely colder. Not going to argue that, but we were 75 degrees like 4 days ago. 75 degrees, and then overnight it went down to 40.
That's the same here.
I was not ready for this.
But instead of 40, it's like 20 and in the teens and snowing. This white stuff.
I keep getting all kinds of videos and pictures of people with snow. I'm not looking forward to coming up for that reason. But the only good thing is that I'm bringing Kristen's car, not my truck, so like her car can get all the salt and shit on it and ruin her car.
Still have the Jeep?
Yep. Unfortunately. Well, not unfortunately. I actually like it. It's just, I'm just done with it. If that makes sense.
You're just done with Jeeps now, aren't you?
I'm hardcore on the Toyota fan boat now. I really am. And you know what? I'm going to tell you this. This makes me proud to own a Toyota. Have you heard of the Japanese motor? I don't even know what you want to call it. Like conglomerate, what they're doing right now?
No.
So they're totally against electric vehicles. So they've pretty much like doubled down, said electric is not how we see the future. And they are like, I don't know exactly which ones, but I think it's like Toyota, Nissan, Mazda, maybe a couple other ones, Japanese auto manufacturers are banding together all of their researchers, and they're trying to find a synthetic fuel or a like carbon neutral fuel basically, so that we can continue to use internal combustion engines instead of electric vehicles.
But they were like one of the first ones, like with the Prius and everything.
Yeah, I know. So they're the longest using of electric vehicles, and they're like, yeah, this is stupid. We're not doing that.
It's just the infrastructure's not there yet.
The infrastructure's not there, and it's really like it's just another cash grab. There's no difference. I haven't done a ton of research, so don't quote me, but there's not really a big difference carbon footprint wise, pollution footprint wise, from your electric vehicles to your internal combustion. It's like they said something along the lines of it. You've got to have the electric vehicle for 10 plus years before it even neutralizes itself.
No. So. Well, here's the thing that are getting way off topic of where we're going to I guess maybe not, because we are going to talk about power plants and batteries and all this other stuff today, but watching a YouTube video from channel of Last Line Defense is they brought the new Ford Lightning, Diamondback's Ford Lightning, out to Colorado from Virginia, and they said they spent more times at a charging station than driving.
Oh yeah,
to go across country.
Once you are no longer in an area where there's like a level 2 charger, it's not viable at all. Like at all. You've got to wait multiple days to be able to drive like more than 100 miles. Because I watched the Fast Lane truck. They did it with the Ford Lightning, and they ended up charging the Lightning off the Power Boost, which was an internal combustion hybrid, because they just had nowhere to charge, and it wasn't the places they could find that'll let them plug in. It just wasn't giving them enough juice.
That and charging stations that say that they were like fast charging stations and everything else, for like to do like the 20-minute charge or whatever, is it actually cuts down too after using it so long of charging your vehicle. It'll be like, all right, you're getting the 80 watts or whatever, and then like a half hour later it'll cut down to like 40.
Yeah, and the thing is, the only way you're actually saving money, like as a consumer in your fuel costs, is when you're charging at home when you have a high energy charger. So like at home, somebody said I think it was like 70 cents per kilowatt hour, whatever it's measured in. So it's cheaper than gasoline, but as soon as you go out in the real world to use the fast chargers, it ends up being the same, if not more, than gasoline per mile. So it's like, it's just people aren't doing research, and I understand that it's going to eventually become really good, because I'm not against it. I'm not against electric vehicles completely. I just feel like there should be no reason for us to force it so quickly.
Yeah,
there's no way that it's viable right now.
That's the problem I have, is it's being forced upon us.
Yeah, and if it wasn't, it may be better, but you look around and you're like, is there something else going on? Like, why are they forcing this so hard right now?
Because certain person in politics has money in lithium.
Welcome to Irons Overland, where we discuss political opinions, and we want everybody to completely listen to us and go our way. Don't think any other way than us.
Anyways, welcome to an episode of Irons Overland. Today we're going to talk about portable power, or your power plant that you have for camping.
Electricity is bad.
Dinosaur fuel.
So obviously,
dinosaurs all the way.
Dinosaurs, obviously. So obviously, we have a plethora of different ways of off-grid living now, off-grid power. Just go through. So we both have Jackeries. We actually both have. Well, I'm just going to say this right now. We both have Jackery 500s, but I'm actually a 550, so I'm a little bit better than Sean.
Whatever.
But honestly, for what I've used it for and done, it's been perfect. Now, it's not. I don't know how viable it would be for like multiple days off-grid living. I'd say like 2 or 3 days max. It's probably going to be really good, but it's worked awesome since I've had it for the couple few times I've used it. I know you've had yours a lot longer than me. So what's your take on it?
I love my little Jackery. I wish I actually got the 1000 or 1500. That way it has a little bit more power. But I also charge it off my truck while driving to the different campsites and whatnot. And also I have a little 100-watt flexible solar panel on top of my rooftop tent.
Oh, what about the 550? Would you wish you went that way instead?
No.
So, give a rundown of your whole setup, because you've got multiple setups, and I feel like you've wired your stuff really well, and I think that the people would get more knowledge and experience out of your stuff than mine, because I literally just have a Jackery that I plug everything into.
Okay, so how I first started off was I went to the actual campgrounds that had plumbing and electric set hookup, and I just used the electric or extension cord, and that's how I charge the phones and everything else like that. Then got into more of the self-reliant power systems, saw the Jackery. Obviously it was Goal Zero was out first and some other ones, and Goal Zero was pretty expensive for what everything was. I mean, they actually have the name, and they were probably the first ones out there for it. I'm not 100% sure on that. But then came across the Jackery, and it pretty much was $1 per watt. So it's like, all right, well, do I purchase this, and is it going to be good? Sure enough, it actually holds up really well. Have it for 3 years now, I'd like to say. Maybe 4. Got the Jackery 500. Got it for $500 plus tax, obviously shipping and everything else included in that. So that was the dollar per watt, and didn't have a fridge quite yet. So just used it for a portable power station for the phones and lights and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, this thing's pretty cool. So then came the fridge. And I'm like, oh, I wonder how long it'll power my fridge for being a 12-volt fridge. And those are decently new too and stuff like that. And it held it for a day and a half, I think, on eco mode and everything else like that. And I'm like, oh, this is awesome. So to charge it then, stepped it up, and I got a flexible solar panel for the top of my rooftop tent. And it was 100 watts, so obviously you have to be at the right angle for it to get the full 100 watts and stuff like that. But while driving, it was plugged into that, and I was getting 80 watts for the most part of it. Otherwise, you could plug it into the cigarette outlet for your truck. And then took it one step further, so I've always had power. Put a little SAE connection in the back of the truck, and I have a dual battery set up now. So now I have a little switch in the cab of my truck for aux power, so it'll run off the second battery when the engine's not running, and so I can use stuff, and I have that plugged into the Jackery, plugged into the SAE connection, so it's constantly charging the Jackery and then charging everything else, if that makes sense.
I think it makes sense, but I've also seen it in person and seen how it works. So.
It just, and I've also will let that Jackery drain all the way down too, because you want that full cycle of discharging and charging to help preserve that battery life too in those things. I know.
So would you feel confident being off grid for more than like 3 or 4 days, like with your power supply?
Oh, I'd feel confident for a week.
So is there anything you would change about yours, like right now? Because I know, like you said, you've got like a deep cycle battery, you've got solar panels, you've got wiring throughout, you've got your Jackery, backup batteries, all that stuff. Is there like something you hate that you have? Is there something that you wish you went a different way with?
So I wish I could charge. So while I'm parked and not the engine running and everything, I wish there was a way to charge the car battery or my secondary battery, which I'm actually slowly building up stuff now to make that my next project. Is I'm gonna actually move the battery and actually have another battery in the back of my truck, so I'll have 2 extra car batteries in the bed of my truck, and get an MPPT charger, so my solar panel can go into that charging system and then it charges the battery, and then I'm gonna have the battery power into the power box. So it's kind of like a battery bank system.
So, I'm trying to figure out how to word this.
Are you lost?
In my head, I'm lost. I'm always lost. Every single minute of my life, I'm lost. What about if like it's stormy or cloudy or anything like that? Like, obviously you can start your truck and run your truck. It's going to charge it to a point. But what if you're not moving? What if you're camped in one spot? I mean, do you think that there's a pretty big downfall there?
No, that's why I want to switch over to that battery bank system. So you have the 2 extra batteries to power up if it is cloudy out or something like that.
Because I've got a very simplistic system. Like I said, I've just got the Jackery, and I basically just have the solar panel. So it's not like I've got, a very good, elegant way of storing energy or charging over time. So when we were in the Ozarks, we didn't have any issues because we did quite a bit of driving. I mean, it's in the name. We're overlanding. We're driving. So what I would do is just hook up the Jackery to the actual like 12-volt DC plug. And then while we're driving, my truck was charging it, and it was also, keeping my fridge alive. But when we would stop, obviously it was no longer charging, so I was trying to set the solar panel up. But you don't always get good sunlight depending on where you've camped. I mean, obviously that's got to be in your mindset when you're trying to power yourself. But I didn't really think about it too much, obviously, until I went to Wisconsin and sat for 2.5, 3 days And I was like, holy cow, I'm not running my truck. I don't want to just be wasting gasoline because I'm not using my truck right now. So I would try to set my solar panel out, but one of the days it rained. The other day it was a little cloudy. And then there was another day where we were in the hotel and I didn't bring the Jackery in to charge. I just brought the fridge in to plug into a wall. So I did have a couple of, I mean, it wasn't, I wasn't off grid. I was at property with my friends. There was electricity there. I could have done stuff if I wanted, but if that would have been a out in the wilderness thing, I was right on the edge of my battery life, basically, for the Jackery. So it would charge up during the day with a little bit of sunlight because I think I was getting like 15 watts maybe, and the fridge at its peak was only pulling off about 10. But I also didn't have the freezer on at that point. I just had the whole thing as a fridge, so it wasn't having to pull a lot. Now it did, without the solar, really, it did last about 2 days without issue. So I know that I've got that. That was kind of nice, actually, as a test to see that Jackery will power my fridge, just my fridge alone, for about 2 days on eco mode. But I did realize that I've got to find another way. I'm going to have to do something like you, so I have stored energy, so I don't have to worry about the solar sunlight as much.
Oh, definitely. I think battery banks are going to be like the way to go on this type of stuff. If you have the room for it, obviously. I mean, I'm just using 2 used car batteries. Eventually, I'm going to upgrade them to a lithium.
I've actually been seeing. I mean, I've been trying to follow some builds and spec some stuff out to figure out where along the lines I want it to be. But I was thinking about doing a similar setup to you, plug wise, I guess, or the area. So I was going to basically build a box and wire it up to my alternator as well, and put it in the corner underneath my bed where I don't really need. I don't use that space up, basically, and have a 12 volt DC plug in there, so I can actually plug in directly from the Jackery or directly from the fridge or what have you. But I've seen people build like an actual, just a box that hides the battery and all the wires, and then they put those. I don't even know what you really call them, but like the volt commanders or whatever on the box, and it looks really clean and super nice. I just haven't actually gone and taken the time to try and super research and build one myself, but I think that's probably what I'm going to end up doing.
I mean, that's wow, I can't talk now. Looking like at the interest of putting a cap on my truck and everything else like that, I watched a few videos too of seeing like, oh yeah, they got like 1 or 2 lithium batteries, and then they got the nice little digital display, and then solar panels on the roof with the MPPT charger, and then also a like secondary way of charging it like off while you're driving. And I think it's just a great idea to have, so when you are camped for a few days, you have that extra power stay there. Instead of running off your car battery, you now actually have 2 extra batteries or 1 extra battery where you can run off of other stuff, and then the Jackery on top of that, or a power bank. It's like you are set for a few days, especially if you have solar panels too.
So that's been one of the bigger things too I've been trying to figure out, because I know you have your solar panels mounted on your rooftop tent. Do you just have like adhesive on there, like double-sided stick tape or something, or what'd you do for those?
Like the outdoor Velcro, like the double hook Velcro, and put it on both sides, and go down the highway at 80 miles an hour and so like that. It's still on there, and that's been on there for about 1.5 years now.
So that's been one of my biggest, not really a big hurdle by any means, but I don't know. I've obviously got the 100-watt solar panel that folds up, so for now that's all I'm going to use. But I'd eventually like to have, a semi-permanent solar setup mounted on the truck. I just don't know exactly how or where, because the thing is, if I'm putting stuff up on the rack, I'm going to block the solar panel.
That's why you need the roof rack now.
Right, but if I have the other roof rack, I mean, I guess I would put my stuff on the roof rack over the cab, keep the solar panels on the topper itself, and really the only time I would put stuff on the topper is if I had no other room had to, and I would just go to my portable panel. But I mean, really, all I do is put the kayaks up there. So if I have the kayaks, I'm most likely not camping out of the back of my truck, or at least I'm not gonna have multiple kayaks blocking the whole thing. So
I mean, you don't necessarily need to have them fully exposed all the time, too. Whatever light gets to them, it's still going to work. But when you get to your campsite, you can take that stuff off the top of the solar panels, put it on the side of your truck or whatever, and then you're getting power that way.
very true. I think that's all food for thought for me. I mean, obviously, I'm kind of at a stall point right now with my build, just because we've been busy. So I got a couple ideas. I just haven't, really followed through on it or anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's all just playing around and doing research, too. Like I said, I kind of got my idea of what I want to do for the time being. I need that MPPT charger and some cables, and then I'm going to go from there and mess around with it and get to work and see how that goes, and actually do a drawdown test of it, too, of seeing how long it'll last. Once the batteries are full, I'm even going to spend the money and get a nice little digital output of like percent of battery on each one. And
So you're going all out.
oh yeah, and then I will plug in. I'll drain down the Jackery, and then I'll have the fridge and the Jackery run into it and see how long it'll last.
See, now that's I mean, I think that's a really important thing, is to actually do a test before you get out there. So like, I had tried to test my refrigerator on my Jackery without solar, and I tried to do it with solar, and I never really got a good accurate thing until, like I said, I was camping in Wisconsin, and that was in like worst case scenario conditions, because I really didn't have a lot of sunlight peeking through. Because I mean, we were also in a heavy covered tree, like there was a bunch of trees above us, so it didn't really get a lot of light through, except for right at noon or early afternoon, where it was directly overhead. And like I said, most of the time it was rainy or cloudy. But for anybody actually like have an inkling or thinking about possibly getting a power plant, I can't say much for any of the other ones. I haven't tried any of them, but the Jackery definitely has been fantastic. I mean, it lasts pretty well. It's nice to have that readout of your solar to see how much is coming in. It's obviously compatible with solar, and it's got the AC plugs, it's got the DC plugs, it's got USBs. It's got a flashlight on it, which is crazy to me, but it's kind of just a cool extra feature. And it holds its charge pretty well, especially with, we both have two different refrigerators we've used on ours, and it's pretty comparable for both the refrigerators. Sean's is a big giant fridge. Mine's only a 59 quart, but both of them have lasted. I mean, I would definitely recommend buying one.
Oh yeah, and on top of it, I'll let Ziggy borrow it when we went camping and stuff, and he ran his CPAP off of it.
Oh shoot! And so that's a 500. So, a lot of folks for CPAPs or other stuff are looking for a larger amperage, or what is it, amps? 500 amps, or is it 500 watts? What is
watts per hour.
Okay, so a lot of times people will tell you need a bigger one, but obviously the 500 worked for it.
Oh yeah, and there's a couple of videos out there as he was looking them up of like you can change the settings of your CPAP too to make it last longer too, which I actually thought was really cool, because what happens if you lose power at home or something?
Right. So, if you do have something like that, and I like them because it's not a large generator taking fuel that you've got to lug around with you. You've got to figure out a way to actually vent the exhaust. It's just, an electric power plant that you just plug in, charge up, and it just goes.
Oh yeah, all it is a lithium battery with a inverter built into it.
And the 500s don't take up a lot of space, and they're light, so it's really it's a win-win. I mean, I don't see any really downfalls having one.
Oh no, and I mean, there's different ones out there. The thing I don't like about the Jackery is the handle, where other ones are like foldable, where it's can go to a good square. Wow, I really can't talk today. A perfect square, where the Jackery has that built-in handle, or molded handle, so it's always fixed like that. So you really, if you're trying to build something, you got to build around that handle too.
Yeah, and it's not like you can stack stuff on top, and it's just got kind of an awkward footprint just because of that. It's a rectangle. It's not bad when you set it down on the bottom, but if you can't, you just got to know you can't put anything on top of it.
That's the one thing I wish, like, there's Blue Yeti out there, and then like the Goal Zero too. They're perfect squares, and then you can stack on top of them. And I think that's, to me, that would be more purposeful, especially if like your type of build. I'd use that, and then like build a little cabinet around that, and then have that as my main power source.
More ergonomic.
Yes.
I will say too, when I bought mine, I got it on sale, and it came with the Jackery brand 100-watt solar panel, which is folding. It folds up, and obviously it'll plug right into your Jackery. I've had no issues with it. I mean, there's probably better ones out there for sure. There's probably worse ones out there. It folds up to a decent size. I mean, it does take up some room, but it's pretty much flat. They tell you not to put it out in the rain, but it is waterproof to a point, obviously. But I've had no issues with it really, and I think the highest that I've seen intake was like 72 watts maybe, which I think is pretty much max. I think the Jackeries can only intake like 75 watts anyways.
95 actually.
Okay, so
I think
a little bit.
I think you could go higher because my 500, like when I got it home, I cannot find my wall outlet charger anywhere. So I have a actual nice big New Power fixed 100-watt solar panel, and I just threw that out in front of my garage and faced it towards the sun. Found the good angle of where it's at, watching the LCD display of the Jackery, and I got all the way up to 95.
Well, dang. Okay.
Yeah, 95 watts coming in, powering that thing up. Oh man, I mean, obviously I face east. So I only got about midday or whatever. So it took about 2 days to fully charge it all the way up to 100, with it being cloudy and everything else like that. But it was, I think, pretty good.
I did try that with mine from 0 up, but my house is, I mean, there's trees around me, but you've got sun all day directly on it. So I went out frequently and moved the solar panel every hour or 2 hours to make sure it was directly in the sunlight. And from 0% to basically 100%, it was, if I started about 7 a.m., it would take probably about 10 hours at the most, 10 to 12 hours, and it was fully charged. So if you're in one area and you're getting good sun throughout the whole cycle of the sun, where it's actually going to, give you solar energy, you can charge it in about a day without issues. In 12 hours, so a whole day of sunlight. So I thought that was pretty good. And I did that twice to like double check and make sure it worked fantastic.
Oh, and that's another thing I'm going to do too, is with this, now that I have technically 2 solar panels, I'm going to make the little connections or wire it together and then put it into one too. So then you can double your charging, I guess, too, or your watts coming in.
Well, I mean, that's pretty much it for mine. I don't have anything else special for mine. Very simple.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's neat. It's different. It's a way to stay off grid a little bit longer, and just little tweaks here and there, trying to find the perfect system for myself, I guess.
Yeah, well, if you're out there looking, if you're in the market for one, definitely check out Jackery. There's plenty of reviews on YouTube of other ones. Don't just listen to our opinion. Try and hear everybody's opinion that's used different ones, because everybody's going to tell you theirs is the greatest, especially folks that are, sponsored by the actual products. But
Jackery can sponsor us if they want.
Yeah, we're not going to complain.
I would like a 1500.
But my setup, just for the Jackery and the solar panel was about $500 on sale. So if you can find that for relatively cheap cost, it's pretty good. It's worth it for sure.
Oh, definitely. I think they're a great investment, just like the fridge.
Well, you got anything else for today?
Nope, that's about it.
All right, well, we hope you enjoyed and maybe learned something or got some better opinions than you might have heard before. Have a good one. Enjoy your weekends.
Thanks for tuning in. Later.